Welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you're doing very well. Now, you're probably thinking, Will, why are you talking about Reading FC's summer transfer plans? Well, I am a Reading fan, and selfishly, I want to make this video to kind of get off my chest the kind of moves that I think Reading as a football club should be going through and the kind of players that they should be going after. But I think going forward on my YouTube channel, I want to make content that you guys suggest in the comments below, but then also I love talking about sport in general and also, of course, football. So I'm going to make, hopefully in the future, plenty of content around sport and football, and also hopefully I'll improve my editing style as well. But then any videos that you guys want me to make in the comments below, I will happily listen and see if I can try and fit that in as best as I can. So, talking about Reading to kind of kick things off in the summer transfer window. Now, if you guys don't know already, Paul Ince is the Reading SC manager. He came in the second half of last season because Veljko Paunovic got sacked and Reading were in serious danger of being relegated. And Paul Ince managed to keep Reading up, but his points per game actually didn't improve that much compared to Veljko Paunovic's. And I don't think Paul Ince had actually a massive impact. He managed Reading for 14 games and Reading lost 7 of those. So it shows that he actually hasn't been that great. But having said that, in all fairness, for Paul Ince's managerial career, he hasn't really had that opportunity to have that time at a specific club that hasn't been a complete crisis mode, because Paul Ince previously has managed the likes of Macclesfield and Blackpool at specific times where both those clubs were in real financial peril and had massive issues off the pitch. So I am happy from his point of view that he is at Reading now full time, and I do hope he's given time. I just don't think he'll be given time. I wouldn't be surprised if he's sacked before the end of the year, but I hope I'm proved wrong. I hope he proves me wrong and other doubters wrong. But anyway, in terms of Reading's summer transfer plans, Mark Bowen has been hired again as the director of football. Now, if you don't know already, Mark Bowen was hired previously as a director of football. Then when Reading sacked, I believe it was Jose Gomez, Mark Bowen was appointed as kind of interim manager. Then Mark Bowen became the normal full-time manager, but then he was sacked. But then now, because Veljko Paunovic and Paul has been sacked and Paul Ince is now the manager, the owners clearly like Mark Bowen, and Mark Bowen has been hired back to be director of football, which I'm not totally against. It's just, to me, a little bit sus. But anyway, in terms of Reading's transfer plans, if you don't know, they had a 6-point deduction last season because they overspent basically more than £33 million over the course of 3 seasons, because that's the most amount of money one team can lose in the Championship over 3 years. £33 million, and Reading exceeded that, especially from the point of view of player wages. So Reading have had to massively cut their player wages and their budget down, and actually this summer Reading can't spend any transfer money, so it's going to be quite difficult for Reading to actually find decent players for free transfers or loanees. Anyway, in terms of their retained list for Reading, they have offered contracts to Tom Holmes, Josh Laurent, Andy Rinomhota, Femi Aziz and Andy Yiadom. Now, I personally think all of them should stay. I hope all of them should stay, because I think at the very least Holmes, Laurent and Yiadom all go straight into Reading's first team. I think Rinomhota is a really decent box-to-box midfielder, and I think Reading would probably find it difficult to find a player in midfield better than Rinomhota realistically. And Femi Aziz is just one of those young academy graduates who's got a lot of pace, he's got a couple of goals here and there, he's got a lot of promise, so I'd love for Reading to keep Femi Aziz. But realistically though, Nottingham Forest are interested in Tom Holmes. I think Laurent will have many suitors, and actually I can see Josh Laurent playing in the Premier League on a side note, just because he never gets injured, he's still in his mid-20s, and he's just so consistent with his performances as the box-to-box midfielder. But then also going forward, he can do a decent job. So Josh Laurent's just one of those athletic, tidy footballers that is so good at reading the game. He's not got the best passing ability, but actually, towards the second half of the season, he showed that he can play a few decent through balls and good passes, especially Sheffield United away. So yeah, I think Tom Holmes and Josh Laurent will probably leave, which will be really disappointing. I can see potentially Yiadom staying, and that would be a fantastic boost for Reading, because I think Andy Yiadom is one of the best right-backs in the league when he's on it. And towards the second half of the season, he showed some really good, consistent form and was actually voted Supporters Player of the Season, which is fully deserved. Decent recognition for him. So in terms of those players, I think maybe Yadon will stay, maybe Femi Aziz and Rinomota, but not sure about Laurent and Holmes. In terms of the players that Reading released, they released Tyrell Thomas and Brandon Barker, who both basically did nothing. Lyland, who basically came in for about a few games and then got injured. Felipe Aruna, whose career was hampered by injuries. And then you had Halilovic, who I think was treated quite badly by the club. When Paul Ince came in, he just didn't fancy Halilovic, which I think was pretty unfair because I don't think he got a decent enough game time and respect. And I think he's a decent, tidy Championship footballer. So it's sad to see Halilovic leave. And then McNulty was just one of those really, really poor signings from Reading. I think Mark McNulty seems like a decent bloke, decent guy. And look, I'm not a professional footballer. I never will be. I mean, who am I? However, I don't think Mark McNulty is quite at the level of Championship football. Although what I will say is I don't think he did actually have enough of a run in the team. I just don't think he is at that level. Anyway, Morrison and Hoylett have both been offered contracts. In my opinion, I think Michael Morrison's been a fantastic signing at Reading. He's been a great servant, and he actually seems like a pretty intelligent person because he has his own business, he's doing his coaching badges, and he's doing a course in sports directorship. So actually, Morrison is really intelligent in terms of his plan for retirement. Having said that though, I don't think he's a Championship football anymore. For me, I think he's League One standard. And look, for the first 2 seasons at Reading, he was a solid, good Championship player. However, I think this season has shown that he's League One standard, in my opinion. I think he's lost a yard of pace, and his reading of the game just isn't quite there as it was last season, perhaps. So for Michael Morrison, I think if I was Reading, I wouldn't offer him a new contract. And then Junior Hoylett, I would. He's a decent winger. He's got a few good goals in him. Seems like a decent bloke. Good character in the dressing room. I would definitely offer Junior Hoylett a new contract. And in terms of the under-23s, so many players have been offered contracts. The likes of Abbey, Dorset, Samuels, Osoru, Kelvin, Melvert Lambert, Lavery, and then also Rasheen Scott, who I'm really excited to see next season. He seems like a really promising player, so I hope Scott gets that game time. But then also, seeing him on Twitter recently, interacting with the fans and expressing his enthusiasm to play for the club is really promising, and I just would rather have those sort of players play for the club any day of the week over players that are going to moan and complain. You know, young, hungry academy players who really, really care about the club. I mean, look, I'm not saying the senior players don't care about the club, don't get me wrong, but Rasheen Scott really, really cares about the club and is so enthusiastic to just perform well, so I hope he gets some game time. Then in terms of the under-18s, actually Reading have got some really decent under-18s on their books. Kamara, who's a really promising midfielder. Clark, Jamari Clark, who of course scored that brilliant brace away against Blues. Then Ashcroft and Holzman, who had a little bit of game time in defence towards the back end of the season. So hopefully all 4 of those players stay. But then I was quite surprised to see Ethan Bristow released. I didn't think he did actually that bad of a job. Maybe a loan move to a League One club would have been decent for him, but if you look at where Reading are in terms of their level, they're a bottom-end Championship club, and I think Ethan Bristow is probably League One standard, so I'd love to see Ethan Bristow get game time at a League One club, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of those players that actually performs quite well at League One level and then moves up to Championship level, so I was relatively surprised that Reading actually released Bristow. Anyway, Reading, they need to do a lot in terms of their transfer plans. I think goalkeeper, I can see Paul is bringing new goalkeeper, but I like Southwood personally. I think he's a decent goalkeeper. Yes, he's made some mistakes, but he's a young goalkeeper. He's so young for a goalkeeper at 24. And yes, he's small, but he makes up for his lack of height in terms of the way he distributes the play. His passing ability is fantastic, and actually, he's very good at parrying the ball. He just needs to improve on his ability to catch crosses, in my opinion. Then in terms of defence, I mean, Reading absolutely need a left-back because Baba Rahman's gone. Tom Holmes, I don't think he'll stay, but I'd love to see a centre-back partnership of Tom McIntyre and Tom Holmes. That would be brilliant. Then if Andy Adamyi leaves, then Reading absolutely need a right-back. In terms of midfield, well, I think Paul Ince, generally speaking, has played a 4-2-3-1. I think they definitely need to bring at least one defensive midfielder in, but especially if Rinomhota and Laurent leave, it will almost certainly be two midfielders Reading need to bring in. Then in terms of attacking players, Swift, of course, has left to West Brom, and I don't blame him at all. You know, he's on better wages at West Brom, more chance of playing in the Premier League, playing with better players, maybe not better training facilities, but like I said, certainly a better chance of playing in the Premier League. And he's played at Reading for 6 years now, so he's done more than his time at Reading. So fair play to him. I wish him the best at West Brom. But Reading probably need to kind of replace him. Now, Ejaria, I thought he was going to have a really good season, the season just gone. But actually, he had COVID at the start and it just didn't really quite get going for him this season. So I hope Ejaria can step up next season and really get some goal contributions. But even if Ejaria and Hoylett both stay, I think Reading need to bring in at least one attacking player. Although what I will say is that Meite is back from injury, and for so much of last season he was injured, and he's such an important player for the team. So I hope Meite can stay injury free and really get some game time for Reading, because he's a really good goal scorer at Championship level. Then finally up front, Puskas will almost certainly leave, and then you've got Lucas João, who's heavily linked with a move away. Now, the dilemma with Lucas João is, do Reading cash in now while he's got a year left on his contract and on big wages? Or do they keep him for next season because he scores so many goals and he can help Reading stay up? For me, I think it's the latter, because if you lose Lucas João, you instantly lose at least 10 goals for next season. And I think Reading will find it extremely difficult to replace those goals. Yes, you have Meite, who was injured for so much of last season, and Ejaria, who didn't quite get his season going last season. But even then, I think you need Lucas João for his goals. So for Reading, I would sacrifice that transfer fee and I would keep Lucas João for this season coming up and just value his goals, basically, because otherwise I think Reading could really struggle to score enough goals to stay up next season. And make no mistake, Reading's primary goal for next season and probably the season after is just to stay up, because of the kind of lack of organisation off the pitch and the fact that Reading have such a small squad, and the fact that they can't spend any money on transfer fees next season. So for Reading, that's kind of their mini kind of rough summer plans. If you happen to be a Reading fan or a Championship fan, let me know what you think in the comments below. And like I said, moving forward, I don't just want to talk about Reading. I want to talk about sport in general, lots of football content, but also any content that you guys suggest. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. I really, really appreciate that feedback. And please like and subscribe as well. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you very much.